but it's not really anything appropriate.
It took you 4 years at college to catch up?
Yes. So I'm always doubling my schooling time just to catch up with what I should have been doing.
And good on you, Jason. Another example, I think, of the state system badly letting people down. Actually, Jason, I'm really interested to talk to you. I'm grateful you called in, Jason's in Swansea, because quite a few people texting in saying they had to send their children to private school, fee-paying school, because they had special educational needs or learning difficulties, and the state system simply wasn't working for them, simply wasn't up to scratch, simply wasn't up to standard when it comes to dealing with SEND children. Now that's a real worry, because if the state system isn't able to deal with learning difficulties and SEND kids, then some have the option of course, taking their children out into the private schools, but a hell of a lot don't, because they simply won't be able to afford it. And then I just think, we've been talking about Oxbridge and top universities admitting that they are going to intentionally try and admit fewer people from private schools. If that includes kids with learning difficulties who are only there because the state system was failing them and have gone to private school and worked hard to catch up, is it right that they're being discriminated against? Doesn't it? It does just need to be more nuance, doesn't there? And that's why I think, there has to be a factoring in at university level of individual circumstances. So yes, if you went to Eton, but you got a scholarship and, both your parents work 3 jobs and you're from a very, very deprived background, Eton. If you've got special educational needs and you have to go to a private school because of educational needs, should you be discriminated against? So when I say that I think, on balance, Oxbridge is right to say it wants to rebalance the system, it has to factor in individual circumstances too. I think that's really important given how many people are getting in touch to talk about special educational needs. Andrew is in Acton. Andrew.
Hi Ben, thanks for taking my call. Yeah, I very much agree with what you were just saying now, and I think the way to achieve it is just by thinking slightly differently about what you're looking for when you decide which children to admit to university. And some of your previous calls have been saying, well, you should just do it. Who has achieved the best? Select them. I think that's not the right test. I think the right test is who has demonstrated the most potential. So you haven't necessarily demonstrated the most potential by getting 5 A stars from Eton. You may well have demonstrated more potential by getting 3 A levels from a failing state school and a single-parent family, for example.
Absolutely.
And therefore, that's what you're looking for, not achievement to date, but what potential you have shown.
Andrew, what would you say? Can I just interrupt you? Because I think you're absolutely on the money. I couldn't agree more. But what Oxford and Cambridge and other universities say is this. They say, we can't look at potential. We don't have the time to spend to have resources and time getting children who are behind but maybe have the potential to catch up. We simply don't have the time to help them catch up. We have to take those who are ready to come and start our courses now. What would you say to that?
Well, I just think that's wrong. And I actually think that is itself discriminatory to say we haven't got time to take advantage of individual circumstances. I think in an employment context, if you took on people saying we're not going to take into account circumstances, that would be discriminatory in many ways. And I think, and another point made was somebody earlier in this conversation said, actually, far more people have demonstrated that they are capable of thriving at Oxbridge than Oxbridge has places for.
Yes.
And it's therefore not right to say that by taking circumstances into account, you're going to be taking in people who are not able to cope. Of course they're going to be able to cope.
They might need extra support. I think that's a fair point, to catch up. I think that's a legitimate thought. But ultimately, if these institutions who say they're world leading can't provide a bit of extra support to help children who haven't had the best education to catch up, well, then they're not that world leading after all, are they?
Well, that's true, but I think also, by and large, the people who have achieved what they need to achieve to get to Cambridge from state schools in difficult circumstances, even though their actual results may not be as good as Eton, will have learned if you like, how to learn.
Yeah.
So they will by then need much less help than they would have benefited from at earlier stages.
How to learn, Andrew, and how to graft than how to do it themselves without the support.
Exactly.
I think you bang on the money, Andrew. I think that's an excellent point and an excellent call. Potential is more important, because what potential means, let's be honest, is raw talent, raw intelligence, raw ability, raw work ethic often too. That's what potential really means. Not fine-tuning, not tutoring, not honing, raw potential. And Andrew is absolutely spot on in my view that universities should be paying more attention to raw potential than they should be what they call polish, i.e. how eloquent and coherent you are in an interview, or exam grades. Because I don't think either of those things reflect genuine potential. Andrew, great to speak to you. I think you're absolutely bang on the money there. 2:48 is the time.
LBC. Join me, Andrew Castle, here on LBC. Nadeem Zahawi, Education Secretary, is with me. What is better now than when the Tories came in and managed to deliver Brexit under this Prime Minister and, of course, control our borders and make sure we have a points-based immigration system? We've got thousands of people still coming across. It doesn't make it's not going to make any difference. Nobody's going to go to Rwanda. You know that. Nobody believes that people are going to go to Rwanda. No one. Join me, Andrew Castle, tomorrow morning from 7. Listen on your radio and on Global Player. LBC.
Selling your car doesn't have to mean haggling with strangers or pretending to be a car connoisseur. Simply sell your car the motorway way. It's the new sell your car from home way. All while car dealers compete to give you the best price way. It's the you could get up to £1,000 more way. This is the new way to sell your car. This is the motorway. Sell your car at motorway.co.uk. For pricing, pay and verification, visit motorway.co.uk.
Everyone can make little changes to waste less. And at McDonald's, we're no different.
Like reusing our old cooking oil to make biodiesel.
That helps fuel my truck. Or recycling my used McCafe car for McDonald's.
To make a birthday card for me. Thanks, Dad.
It's the start of a plan to recycle and reuse even more. Because we know when you change a little, you change a lot. Recycling units available in UK restaurants. Search National Cup Recycling Scheme. Includes cards and other products.
There's nothing I wouldn't do for my patients. I'm a Macmillan nurse. If they want me to stay with them at night while their partner gets some sleep, they just need to say. If they want to go back home to see their family for Christmas, I'll get them there. Even if it's in the Outer Hebrides. They want to get married in bed? Done. I do whatever it takes. So asking you to donate isn't a problem either. Just visit macmillan.org.uk. Macmillan Cancer Support, whatever it takes.
Would you and your business benefit from a more hands-on approach from your accountant? How have you been supported over the past year? At Barnes Rofe, we know how important it is to work closely with our clients through both the good times and the bad, making sure that you're getting the best advice for every situation. Why not see what we can do for you and your business? Arrange your free consultation at barnesrofe.com. Barnes Rofe, clever accountants for business.
When I was working, I was very, very difficult with Belson.
Join me, Rachel Johnson, as I sit down with women at the forefront of change. Recently, I was joined by Delia Smith.
I wanted to try and take fear out of cooking in people. I wanted to try and teach them. And I was single-minded in it. I never was quiet, you see. I was a pain in the neck.
Rachel Johnson's Difficult Women. Listen to the full podcast and subscribe now on Global Player.
At Lidl, we're big on a summer of quality for all. So it's time to get those Barbies out with 2 Vermondo vegan burgers just $1.59, 2 Seabass fillets with butter for $3.69, and 6 British Big Dog hot dog sausages just $2.99. Now that's big on quality and always Lidl on price. Subject to availability, selected stores, excludes NI.
Ben Kentish on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
2:51 the time here on LBC. Lots of you getting in touch. We agree with Andrew, who we spoke to just a moment ago, who's making the point that we need to talk a lot more about the potential in education, not just about what we call merit or ability, or the grades, potential. As Andrew making the call of the day, nailed it. Someone else says, exactly, principal's spot on. Simply put, independent education acts as a filter to ensure that only committed kids and their parents are accepted. Well, actually, I'm not sure I fully agree with that. I think for most committed kids and those who've had to work even harder because they don't go to top schools to get the same grades or pretty close to them, they're pretty committed too. That's Andrew in Peterborough. Let's see what Alison in Croydon thinks. Hi, Alice.
Hi, I work in a London state school, but I'm choosing to send my daughter to independent school in September. So, for me personally, I made a choice due to the behavior within school. I've been teaching for about 19 years now, and every year I realize that the new group of year 7s coming in, going through, they are very, very disrespectful. And sometimes we have children that hold classes at ransom, and teaching literally has to stop. I even had this conversation last week with some of my students that if I have to deal with behavior for 5 minutes, you will lose about 6 hours of learning over the entire year. And it does not have nothing to do with teachers' behavior management. It is that some kids you cannot speak to them. And if you start speaking to them, it's an argument and they feel like they need to have the last say.
Has it got worse, Alice? Has it since you've been teaching? Has it got better or worse, or is it always been an issue?
It has gotten worse.
Why do you think that is?
Worse over the years. I'm not sure. I think it has to do with parenting. For me as a teacher, I think it's parenting because a lot of the students whose parents are quite supportive and are strong and disciplined, they are normally the students who progress much more. And sometimes you might call a parent and you might say your child has done such and such. Oh, I don't know what to do. You have them in the day, so you need to know what to do with them. That is not a response that you get as a parent, as a teacher looking for support. I think family breakdown is also an issue why we do not have that much progress in secondary school. I disagree that schools do not have the money to support students to go to Oxford and Cambridge. I think within secondary school, yes, the class sizes are quite big. However, children with aspirations, I think that is another thing that is lacking. Students' aspiration. I think one of the things is they don't see role models within their family or within their community that is aspiring to do more.
I think you're raising an important point, Alice, which is schools cannot solve all the problems about parenting, about aspiration, about social breakdown. Teachers can't fix that. So even if you improve state schools, which I think we accept we need to do, there's still wider issues about class, about poverty, about where opportunity is distributed. I think that's a really important point. It's Alison Croydon, good to speak to you. Lisa's in Barnet. Lisa, do you agree with that?
Yeah, I'm coming from a slightly different perspective. So I'm a foster carer, and I have a 10-year-old boy with me at the moment. He's been with me for 2 years, and he amazingly has a bursary place at an independent school. And hats off to the school for accepting him, but came from a really, really difficult, troubled background, being in the care system since he was 3. But he's academically able, which is one of the reasons he got there. But what's been really interesting for me is also the stepping up of the social side. The children are all very privileged and have no problem with that. They didn't know what a foster child was. And the little boy I have is very open about his situation. And so for them, it's been such an education for them to learn that actually not everybody lives a very privileged life. And even the parents have never met a foster carer before. And sort of like, I sometimes thought I had 2 heads because it's like, no, I'm just human. I'm just a mum, come and talk to me. Yep. And they're very interested. And so I think, the other thing about bringing some children from very disadvantaged backgrounds into the independent school system, it's a fantastic education for the majority of children who are there who would never be touched by the things that, for example, foster children and children in care have been touched by. And so, the whole academic side, obviously, he is getting an amazing education, but for everything he's been through, I think he absolutely deserves it. But it's just, and even some of the children come and talk to me, and, they don't understand, not being able to live with your birth mum and dad, or having to live with potentially strangers and move and all of those things, and some of the reasons for it. So for me, bringing more children, from my point of view, obviously, it's something I'm very interested in, the care system into the independent sector does a lot for those children who naturally would fall there because of their sort of economic background.
They've got as much to learn from him as he looks from them. Lisa, two quick questions, if I may. Firstly, how did they respond to him initially? Were there any sort of difficulties? And actually, the second question: how did he find it going into a school full of people who, for the reasons you just said, weren't like him?
The kid, and I think it's the age that they do it. So this was a primary school, and I think younger children are very, very accepting of differences of all types, be it disability, be it your background, whatever it is. So I think as the children were younger, and that's one of my pleasures that they accepted him. You know, my fear was at Christmas he was going to get Christmas cards, or obviously post-COVID invited to the parties, and he had. So the children found it they were fascinated by him in a way. What was interesting, he didn't realise that we didn't say anything. He was just, when he moved to us, this is his new school, and we did the whole settling in thing. It was only after a while, and again, because of COVID, obviously they weren't there for a while, but he's gone to some parties in some of the other houses, which, you know, are very different from the places that he's lived, and he's sort of worked it out for himself. But he's you know, it's fantastic that he's got the confidence to go, well, you know, we don't live in a house like that, but they're my friends. So I think the children being younger have done a great job. Yeah. And I think because he's very open about his situation, he made it easy for them as well.
Lisa, really, really good to speak to you. All the best to you and your son. Sounds like he's got a very, very good foster mum, very lucky boy. That's such an interesting point. It's such an important point. Having children from certain backgrounds only mix with other children from the same background, is that healthy? I don't think it is, and that's why I think the concept of comprehensive schools is absolutely what we need. And one of the problems that we have with private schools is that too often, as Lisa was saying, kids are only exposed to people who come from the same background, and then they go into society and they're not prepared for the diverse in all sorts of ways country that we live in. And I think that's probably a problem that Lisa just raised. Last word to Henry. Henry, we've only got a minute, I'm afraid. You are a new caller, so I'm sorry we haven't got much longer. But fire away. I'll keep quiet.
That's quite right. So my daughter is currently at first year up at Oxford at the moment. So she did very, very well. But she comes from a state school, so she's one of the sort of 70% of new entrants went to a state school, and the university does actually do quite a lot to outreach program to schools, and she went on to sort of targeted state school sort of activities to both Oxford and Cambridge to learn about it. But one area that's really marked is that very few students from the north or Scotland seem to apply to Oxford and Cambridge. And that isn't succeeding. And even the people getting AAA in Tyneside or whatever, they're not applying. And the data shows that.
Do you think that's because they feel it's not for people like them, Henry? Because that's an issue, isn't it?
I suspect so. That's my gut feeling. And that they're probably staying up north, Newcastle or Manchester or somewhere. They're not applying. So all of her friends are really from London and the South East. Nearly everyone she knows. And she knows more people from Singapore than from the north.
Well, that's pretty damning, I think, Henry. Henry, you're a new caller. I hope next time you call in and we'll have a little bit longer, but really, really good to speak to you, making a powerful point there, really, I think. And that is a failing on two fronts. It's a failing of Oxbridge to convince kids and parents and children in those areas that it is a place.
Hello, mate. Hello. You all right?
And it is a myth that Oxbridge or other top universities aren't for people like them. I would say it's not true. I worry about that too.
What did you study today?
Yeah,
I know that. What element?
I went to a comprehensive, and it is for you. You can do well. You will enjoy it. That's fine. Probably one of the best things you ever do. Let's move on, Sean. Let's talk about what we are all that as a country we can't deny we have an obesity epidemic. We have an issue when it comes to food prices. We have an issue of food and cooking. And the week that a Tory MP came under fire saying people simply don't know how to cook, he got a lot of abuse for that. Is he onto something? Government is ditching its plan to ban multi-buy deals on unhealthy foods. Are they right, or is that really not the problem?
On your radio, on Global Player, and
Play LBC.
leading Britain's conversation This is LBC. From Global's newsroom at 3 o'clock, President Putin has told Finland that joining NATO would be a mistake. He spoke with the Finnish president earlier after the country expressed its intention to join the alliance, which Russia has always seen as a threat. Ukraine's president says his country's forces have retaken 6 towns and villages, with Russian troops suffering heavy losses. Volodymyr Zelensky's assessment comes as US intelligence suggests Russia's military appears to have withdrawn from the strategically important city of Kharkiv. Sinn Féin's president says the DUP is punishing the people of Ireland by blocking the formation of a new Northern Ireland Assembly over the protocol in the Brexit deal. Speaking earlier, Mary Lou McDonald said there is a need for a functioning government in the North. Vice President of Sinn Féin, Michelle O'Neill, is calling for political parties to work together.
We want to work in partnership with others, but the DUP failed to turn up. They failed on day one to actually form an executive, let us get back to work, do what we need to do for the public. The public voted in strong numbers, probably the largest election turnout we've seen in a long time, but they voted for politics to work.
A woman and 3 dogs have died in the car crash in Chelsea in London. A 26-year-old man has been arrested on suspicion of causing death by dangerous driving. 2 more cases of monkeypox have been confirmed in England. The UK Health Security Agency says one of the 2 people who live in the same household is being treated in hospital. The cases, confirmed earlier, are not linked to the previously confirmed case in England announced on May the 7th. Dr. Simon Clark is a virus expert at the University of Reading.
It kills about 1 in 10 people that it infects. That's probably down to poor medical treatment, physiological support that people would get in the developed world. They probably don't get it in other parts of the world. So, yes, it can be lethal, but that's only in a minority of cases.
The government has suspended orders of the National Union of Students due to concerns over anti-Semitism. Universities Minister Michelle Donlan has ordered the NUS to be removed from all Department of Education routes. And Chelsea play Liverpool in the FA Cup final later at Wembley. The Blues have already lost out to their opponents in the League Cup this season, and Chelsea boss Thomas Tuchel admits it's a challenge.
We are facing one of the very best coaches and one of the very best teams in the world right now. This is obvious and it's proven over the last years and in recent weeks, and we're up front.
The weather, a dry and warm afternoon for most areas. Patchy cloud across Scotland and Northern Ireland with a high of 22. From Global's newsroom, I'm Simon Morgan. This is LBC. With Ben Kentish.
With me, Ben Kentish. Let's talk about being fat shaming. It's something that I had some experience of, but frankly, too many of us do. We know we have an obesity epidemic in this country. We know this year 28% of adults in England are obese and 36.2% are overweight. We know that obesity is set to, in the coming years, cost the NHS £9.7 billion a year. It's a massive problem facing this country. It's one that we don't talk in. That we think needs to be done. What needs to change the size of our national waistlines in this country? The government today has decided it's going to pause plans to ban multi-buy deals on junk foods. Pretty obvious why they're doing that. We're in the middle of a cost of living crisis that is squeezing family incomes across the country, putting political pressure on the government. So they are delaying the plan to ban things like buy one, get one free deals. But they've been warned that the move to do that, the delay, could blow a hole, that's the words of the former health minister, Lord Bethell, in their plans to tackle the obesity epidemic in this country. Do you think they're right to do that? Do you think this is the nanny state, effectively? If people want to buy junk food and it's buy one, get one free, they should be free to do it. But you can't mandate by law or try and nudge people into eating in certain ways. I wonder what you make specifically of the decision on that. Is it right, really, for the government to be saying to people, you've got to pay more for junk food at a time of the cost of living crisis? But really, I think the issue is this. If this is it's not, but it's a big part of it, to clamp down on unhealthy eating, to tackle a problem that is blighting our country, particularly young
chicken soup,
people,
done.
then we need to have a better conversation too. What do you think we need to do to tackle obesity? Why are so many people in this country, frankly, too fat? Is it about money? Is it because junk food is simply cheaper? That it's more readily available? That people don't have time to cook because they're working too hard or spending too long on childcare? They simply don't have the capacity. Is it about money and poverty? We know that people from poorer backgrounds are more likely to be obese or overweight. Why is that, and how do we help them? But I wonder what you think of this too. Lee Anderson, MP, in the news this week, not for the right reasons, came under a lot of fire for using a House of Commons debate on the Queen's speech to say this.
There's not this view, this massive view for food banks in this country. We've got generation after generation who cannot cook properly, they can't cook a meal from scratch, they cannot budget, the challenge is there.
Now, I completely disagree with that bit. The reliance on food banks in this country is not because people can't cook. But was he getting at something else? A whole generation who don't know how to budget properly, don't know how to cook a healthy meal. On that, I'm not so sure he's wrong. Let's be clear, it's not why people are going to food banks. People are going to food banks overwhelmingly because they can't afford food. Let's be clear on that. But there are too many people in this country, aren't there? Particularly people of my generation, younger generations, who don't know how to cook properly, who don't know how to budget properly, because they're not taught it properly, either by their parents or in school. Maybe that's controversial, but I think it's true, and I'm interested to hear. I wonder what you make of it. 0345 60 60 973. You can tweet at LBC or text me on 84850. But there's also an issue about activity, isn't it? And this comes back to the conversation we were having about working from home. Too many of us spend too many hours sat at our desks. And that's why I said earlier, if people working from home mean people getting out more, doing more exercise, cycling, running, sports, even walking, good. That is a good thing. And yet at the same time, we know there are issues around sport in school. I think it's far too infrequent. PE, was it once a week, even twice a week? Not enough. And then we come to sort of community sport, where there is an absolute crisis in facilities. Tennis courts being built up, football pitches being sold off, basketball courts being bulldozed, and then we have ministers saying young people aren't active. Come on! If we are not giving them the facilities that they need and want to do the sorts of activities they want, well, no surprise they're sitting on the PS4, the PS5, or the Xbox, or whatever it is. We have to do better when it comes to kids in sport. We have to make it easier. Going back to our previous conversation, it can't just be the private schools that have the cricket pitches and the rugby posts and the tennis courts that are basically gravel. We cannot say our kids are too sedentary and then take away all the places that they want to do the sports they want to do. That has to be part of the picture for them. But of course, it's a much bigger picture. It factors in education around food, it factors in access to healthy food, it factors in prices, it factors in exercise and sports facilities. And I'm sure there's all sorts of other things that I've missed. So please call in if you think I have. 0345 60 60 973. There are infinite, almost, reasons that we are, as a country, so overweight. And that means there are infinite things that we could probably do to fix it. Text me on 84850 or tweet at LBC. Dr. Matt Davey is Officer for Health Promotion at the Royal College of Paediatrics and Child Health. Doctor, good to speak to you this afternoon. Firstly, can I just get your take on the government delaying that ban on multi-buy deals for junk foods? Afternoon.
Afternoon, Ben. As a college, we would oppose delaying this measure, which was part of the government's obesity plan, which was agreed something like 3 or 4 years ago and still hasn't been implemented. There are lots of things that the government